Anthony Gordon has cut his hair.
Oh, I've seen it.
that, yes.
I've seen it.
Get him in instead of Gary Neville, I reckon.
Get him in.
If he's not fit.
Unfortunately, when you spend £55 million on a guy who turned 29 immediately, you kind of need immediate impact from him. Still think when you look at Walter Marder, his contribution to Newcastle has been very, very good, and people who are scapegoating him at the moment are wrong.
Ramsey started to turn a little bit of a corner.
Yeah,
The
definitely, yeah.
performances have improved, but he's not somebody who you'd say, everybody being fit, is banging on the door to unseat one of the other lads in midfield.
Yeah, I mean, Elanga at the moment looking like potentially one of our worst ever signings.
Eddie Howe's right to ask the fans to stick with him. He's got to show that it's worth sticking with him.
Newcastle have won once away at Man City since 2000. They also haven't scored there since 2018.
We're all of a sudden going to find ourselves incredibly thin at centre-back. This has been really challenging and it's been quite disheartening in some points, but we're actually doing really well.
These are the games we wanted. What's the point in going to the,
Yeah,
point in the
that's why we're
Champions
here.
League and then going away and play PSG, the winners, and then putting out the reserves? What is the point of that? We may as well go there and give it our best and try and show what we're about.
Hello and welcome to Inside the Toon, the show where we take a deep dive into all things Newcastle United. I'm your host, Olly Clink. Joining me on the panel today, journalist and Newcastle fan Jack Cunningham and Adam Clery himself from the Adam Clery football channel with the best jumper in the business as well. We're going to react to Newcastle's loss to Manchester City today and also, let's say, the interesting fixture list they have got coming up. Also some big news this week, a brand new £200 million training ground could be on the way. Lots to talk about, so let's get straight into it. We come into this show off the back of a 2-0 loss to Manchester City in the Carabao Cup in the first leg. Before we get into that, I have some huge news, and it's good news as well. Anthony Gordon has cut his hair.
Oh, I've seen it.
that, yes.
I've seen it. I don't want to say bullying works. I don't want to say that you should harass people on social media, but I think clearly those composites of him looking like Krusty the Clown at the Man City game may have had an impact on this.
I think we're agreed as a panel. Anthony, you've made the right choice.
Yes.
Yeah,
You've
oh
made the
God,
right
oh
choice.
God, yeah.
Well done,
Gone
mate.
for the
Maybe-
short back and
maybe-
stomping.
Maybe it will transform a bit of his form as well. But, I mean, listen, it was a disappointing result. And at the end of the day, Adam, really, Newcastle had 4 big chances and missed them all. And Man City had 2 and took them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have said this. I don't want to use the I word, but that is one of the few games we've had this season where you come away thinking, if we had an unnamed world-class centre-forward at the peak of his form, you almost certainly do go on and win that game. It's not like a massive criticism of Issa. He's he's come straight back into the side from a really bad injury that does take time to get sharpness back. But that first chance especially, a striker in form, even just a left-footed striker, probably buries that, and it's a very, very different game. I'm pleased that what people are taking away from it is that we could very easily have won that match and not being sort of doom and gloom and, oh, we didn't turn up and, other such sentences that have followed, other unnamed big games we've had this season. I thought they were really unlucky, maybe a little bit naive over the second goal as well, but overall, it's a good enough performance, and I don't think they should, like Dan Burn was saying on the commentary, it's a cliche, but it is only half time. And I do think they can look at it that way, albeit the record away against Man City, I'm sure we'll touch upon.
Yeah, Adam glass half full Clery.
I know, yeah.
By the way, Dan Burn, what a debut on the old pundit.
Oh, he was running rings around them.
Brilliant, wasn't it?
Around them.
Yeah, get him in instead of Gary Neville, I reckon.
Get him in.
If he's not fit. But Jack, just on Wissa, because it was interesting what Adam said there about the fact that, listen, Wissa obviously hasn't been fit for most of this season. Are you willing to cut him that kind of slack after that performance? Because it was disappointing and he did miss some really big opportunities.
Yeah, I am willing to, but equally, unfortunately, when you spend £55 million on a guy who turned 29 immediately, you kind of need immediate impact from him. It's not his fault he got the injury on international duty. It's just the way it is. And then he's come back. I thought he looked good against Fulham. I thought his goal, some people would say it was a tap-in, but actually he reads it really well off the goalkeeper and he anticipates where the goalkeeper's going to push it, and that's a striker's instinct. And then I thought he was good against Burnley as well. And then I think since then he's just dropped off just that little bit. Maybe it's just because he is trying to get back to match fitness. It's just unfortunate we're in a position whereby we have spent a lot of money on this guy and we need him to hit the ground running immediately, and we need him to do that for the entire second half of the season. Otherwise, people are going to rightfully say at the end of the year, you've spent 55 million on a guy who's not got much long-term investment.
Do you think it's fair to say, though, that Newcastle and their fans already knew they'd overpaid for Wissa anyway? And also, when you think about the fact that he was actually not the replacement for Isak, he was meant to be the replacement for Callum Wilson.
Yeah, I think most people have said it was an overpay, but it was one of those ones where we had to do it, otherwise we wouldn't have had another striker. So we had to do it. But then I think from the point of him signing, you are hoping that he just plugs in and plays. And even though he didn't have a pre-season, entirely his fault, by the way, he did the exact same things as Alexander Isak did. So, got to blame him for that. But I still think he would have probably just plugged in and played. And the injury at the end meant that Waldemar had to play loads of games. Asula's injured as well, so Waldemar had to just keep playing loads of games. And I think that's now affecting Waldemar's performances as well, because I've noticed a significant drop-off in his displays in the last few weeks. I think the pace of the Premier League's catching up with him, and the amount of minutes into his legs is also catching up with him as well. I still think when you look at Waldemar, his contribution to Newcastle has been very, very good, and people who are scapegoating him at the moment are wrong to do that, in my opinion, but I have seen people doing it. I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I think it's just the fact that we are now noticing a level that is coming down on what we saw initially.
It's interesting because in the Bournemouth game in the FA Cup, which, I mean, Newcastle have not been good for the heart rate recently, have they? Some of the games have been pretty crazy. But
great for the neutrals, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
They was having a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you look at the fact that Eddie Howe in that game, Adam, started Wissa and Voltemade together, what did you make of that link up? Because after the game, it felt to me as if Eddie Howe wasn't that happy with it. He kind of hinted as if it wouldn't be something that he would be looking at doing too often in the future.
Yeah, he said a couple of times that he feels like his hand is a bit forced with a couple of the selections, having to rotate players in, rotate players out. We've put out really strong squads. Like, we've talked on other pods about like this necessity of doing better squad building, managing the minutes better, how that plays into sort of the intensity of the way we play and doing all this. But I think as a consequence, we've probably never had an idealised 11 out at any point in the last couple of games. There's always been a replacement here, a replacement there. Still strong, but not the sort of full 11 you'd like out on the pitch. The Wissa Voltemade thing, it's everybody's been crying out to see this as more of a 4-2-3-1. Have Voltemade with his link-up play, be slightly deeper, have Wissa run the channels, pull defenders around. And it's one of those, I feel like it's one of those options that feels great because you've never seen it. It's one of those, like when players are out with injury, they become the solution, they become the answer because you're not seeing them play and you're not seeing like sort of the ups and downs of what they're doing. I do think it's an option there, and I think the fact he explored it in a game like that at home where you're favoured and you fancy, you're going to want to go through, is a good indication. I'd like to see it in game as opposed to be something from the start. Like I really want to see when we're chasing a game, I want to see them on the pitch together then when the opportunities are coming in, rather than necessarily it's just sort of like, oh, well, we can... I mean, because he started him technically out on the left, although he did a lot of work more in the middle. So he did kind of play like that. When we're not flush with loads of really, really good options, we've got a lot of honest players. So I think Ramsey's starting to turn a little bit of a corner.
Yeah, definitely,
the performances have improved. But he's not somebody who you'd say, everybody being fit, is banging on the door to unseat one of the other lads in midfield. So I think the position we're in at the minute is a lot of the changes and a lot of the setup is sort of feels like it's a bit of necessity at the minute. So, yeah.
Where would you say, do you think, Voltemade's best position is? Because having seen him kind of dropping into that position behind the striker.
It's still centre forward. It's still centre forward. Like, when you watch him, even just with us as well as Germany, like when you get runners around him and when you get bodies around him and you allow him to connect with other players, he looks absolutely fantastic. The games where he struggled are the games where he's looked really isolated. Yes. And, we haven't necessarily got the ball into his feet well enough or early enough. And when we have the options for him to do things with it, haven't necessarily been there. I still think he leads the line really effectively. A lot of the best goals he scored for us, he's been, pushed right up that end of the pitch. The Everton one's fantastic. He goes behind the line for that. He is still a centre forward. I don't think he's not a number 10 in the classic sense, but he is 100% a centre forward. But he is one that you do have to do things around to get the best out of him. Certainly at this stage of his career.
Yeah, you mentioned Jacob Ramsey there as well, Jack. If you also include Anthony Elanga, another player that came on in that game, who we do need to have a chat about.
Do we? Is Need doing a lot of heavy lifting?
I think unfortunately you kind of got to speak about him, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially that one, it's just been a bit disappointing, really. But how would you kind of assess all of the summer business now that we're kind of 6 months into this season?
Yeah, Elanga at the moment looking like potentially one of our worst ever signings, genuinely, at this moment in time. But what I'm saying is just at the moment. We've seen as well, I mean, Lewis Hall took a while to develop and grow into a really good player. Anthony Gordon took a while as well. You have got to still give him time. It's just what I'm struggling with the moment with Elanga is I'm not even seeing the basics he's doing wrong. Like, if 5-yard passes he can't do, he's not running at anyone, he's not using his pace. He seems so short of confidence, but even like any belief in his own ability that he can change a game or even just keep the ball, essentially. He was working hard. He's working hard and tracking back and stuff, and he's clearly trying. But at the moment, for £55 million, 1 assist in 26 games isn't enough for when right wing have been in a position we've wanted to change him for ages.
Yeah, is that because he's playing a kind of different role to the one that he did at Forest, who were a very counter-attacking team? Do you think?
Look, when I did the video on him, and like even when we spoke about him on the other podcasts, like I've said that this it's sort of similar to Wisser in a sense that they probably did quite spectacularly overpay for Anthony Elanga, and they didn't buy somebody. I know Eddie Howe described him as being Premier League ready, but that's in the sense of like he's not going to take any time to adapt to the league. He's got to take time to adapt the system the way every player you buy does. And I said at the time they hadn't bought a player who was an immediate plug-in that fixes the right wing issue, that improves, that raises the level. They brought a bit of a project. They saw somebody with really good raw ingredients doing a really specific job at Nottingham Forest. But then when you break down why he's good at what he's doing at Forest, it's because he's got incredible athleticism. He's really good driving with the ball. He progresses it excellently up the pitch, which is something we haven't really had on that side. Jacob Murphy was fantastic last season, but he was fantastic with end product. Overall, play was a little bit lacking. We didn't dominate games with him in the side. But what he would do is he would put those early balls in. He linked it really well with Isak. The numbers, told their own story, but you can improve on that. What's happened is he's come in, and they are obviously working with him, but it's just when you buy a project, there's a lot of work to do, and thus far, that work is not really yielding any results. Like I did the tweet after the game, like the numbers is like staggeringly bad. He's in the bottom 1% for take-ons in the Premier League this season of all the wingers. The bottom 1%. There isn't a number low. You can't be in the bottom 0%. The bottom 1%.
That is as bad as it
But I said in the tweet, I was like, it's still early days, and I got a lot of replies being like, how can you? It's early. He's been here 6 months. He's had 11 starts.
Yeah.
He's had 11 starts. He's been in and out. They clearly have not settled on what the best use of him is. And there's certain games where you put him in, you think, this is one for Elanga. Then that's when the responsibility is his to then go and show. So even if it's not, snap your fingers and it's an immediately brilliant performance, that's when it's on him as a professional to go and show, well, look, I'm maybe not the best fit for this yet. I'm maybe still a few months away from being the finished article, but I'll get the ball, watch me do this. Watch me show you something, even if it's not quite right. And I think, we don't see them in training. Maybe it works every single day in training. Maybe they're sitting there scratching their heads going, I can't believe this isn't yielding something on the pitch because he's on board with the instructions, he looks really good, everything's clicking into place through the week. But then we put him on the pitch, it's not quite there. We don't know whether that's the case or not. He might be diabolical in training for all we know. He might be even worse. But he has to now, I think, take a bit of the responsibility because clearly the club have had 6 months to work on him. Yeah. But those 11 starts, he would probably argue, that's not a massive run of games yet, especially when he's been in and out.
Yeah.
So I think he now has to go and do something just to be like, look, please stick with me. Watch what I can do when things fall into place. But Man City was about as far away from that as I've seen.
Yeah, his confidence just looks absolutely shot. And you know what? It's funny, isn't it? It just feels to me like there was a bit of a sliding doors moment in that opening.
The Villa, the miss against Villa.
I know. You are. You know what?
And he missed that chance early on. And you just feel if that went in,
I think it's very different.
We could have been looking at a totally different player. But hopefully, as you say, Adam, that he can improve. And you made some good examples there, Jack, about players like Lewis Hall and Anthony Gordon potentially who have eventually come good and seriously looked maybe not this poor, but not certainly players that you were confident about their future.
And also another thing, a lot of players when they speak about working with Eddie Howe, they always say that it takes them a while to learn exactly what he wants. I mean, if you listen to Dan Burn, what he was saying on the commentary for the punditry, he said that we have patterns of play and we know 3 passes ahead of exactly where the ball's probably going to end up when, say, Bruno's got the ball. Right, it's going to take more than just a few training sessions to learn that. So I appreciate the negativity towards Elanga. You have got to judge him for what you've seen so far. Equally, do have to give him. We have still got to give him time because we have spent a bit of money on him, and ultimately the club have decided to invest in him. I saw Howe's comment on him today. He said he wants the fans to give him love and what have you, and feel loved and respected and stuff. And I think that's a clear message from Eddie that just wants some backing for Elanga.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think as well, and I don't want to sit here and make loads of excuses for him because, again, you pay that money, he hasn't shown, say whatever you want about sort of the framework around him. This is probably, if you're a player who's going to take a lot of work from the coaches and your teammates in training, this is arguably the worst season we've ever had in terms of actual minutes on the training ground. Now, don't get me wrong, look at Semenyo, right? That's a completely different system. He's gone to a completely different team. It's a similar sort of transfer to the one we've made with Elanga, and he's hit the ground running like that. And it can go that way just as easily, but it hasn't. And so you've got to work with what you've got. And they knew they were getting a player who was going to take a bit of work. And if you think about the fixture pilot we have, the amount of actual, really long periods during the week where they'll be like, right, we can knuckle down, we can learn all this stuff. He's getting so relatively few minutes compared to what you'd want with the coaches and with the staff. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm just sort of hand-waving a £55 million fee for a really important position.
Exactly.
It hasn't been enough. He has got to start doing more. Yeah. Eddie Howe's right to ask the fans to stick with him, but it does work both ways. I can understand the frustrations, and he's got to show that it's worth sticking with him. Yeah. But at the same time, it's been really difficult for him, and I do understand why it has been difficult. But I mean, look, if he scores a hat-trick against Man City and we end up going through the Carabao Cup final, nobody's going to remember how bad his first.
No, that is the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, talking of which, the second leg.
Yep.
Jack, how are you feeling about it? We've had Adam feeling glass half full. I love the optimism
actually,
as well.
Since you said that, the glass is now
the glass is now drained. Yeah. How are you feeling about this second leg?
The only chance we've got is if we score the next goal in the tie. I think if we don't, that is the end of it. You know, the record at the Etihad or the City of Manchester Stadium, what it was called before that.
Well, I tell you what, on that, I've got a little quiz for you both.
Go for it.
I've got a quiz for you both. So the last, Newcastle have won once away at Man City since 2000, which I'm sure you probably both remember, in the League Cup. They also haven't scored there since 2018. Yeah. Can you name
we haven't scored there since 2018?
Yes. Yeah. Can you name the 10 players scored at City since that game in 2000 in the league for Newcastle?
Since
10 players have scored. And I'll give you a clue, obviously one of those includes the win in the League Cup.
Yes, of
Which
course.
our last 10 players to score there.
Yeah.
So Aarons and Sissoko.
Yeah. Correct.
Dan Gosling?
Dan Gosling is one.
Jacob Murphy.
Jacob Murphy is one.
DeAndre Yedlin.
DeAndre Yedlin. Oh, great shout.
How many? We've got 10.
Yeah.
And that's
Tell you
5.
what, we're on 5 at the moment.
Right.
I'll let you have a think about it. We'll revisit it.
Cool.
There's some interesting names there. You've got some of the trickier ones already.
Mm-hmm.
But
this is just that men could just sit around naming footballers. Isn't it?
Why not? Why not? Anyway, just moving on. There's some interesting news off the field this week in plenty of departments actually. If we start with Sven Botman, who's signed a new contract, he's going to be at the club until 2030. That can only really be good news, Jack. I mean, obviously, his career at Newcastle has been quite disrupted with injury, but I feel that when Sven Botman's at his best, he is a top defender.
Yeah, he is. My issue with this contract is I think we've done it too early, to be honest. I think I would have waited until the summer so we can see if he stays fit, for one, until the end of the season, and see what level he gets back to. Because Botman, if we go back to September 2023, where he partially tore his ACL and the club messed it up, they decided to rest.
You're fine.
Yeah, decided rest, not have surgery, and then it comes
magic
back.
Sponge, should be fine.
He rests, he comes back, he didn't look anywhere near the same player because he was obviously playing at, 50% fitness.
He had one knee.
Literally
one functioning
knee. And then he does his ACL in the FA Cup against Manchester City, misses the World Cup, and he comes back in December. 2 unbelievable performances in the Carabao Cup, by the way. There was the ones he put in the semi-final against Arsenal were incredible. He was so good in both games. And it looked like this is the Botman back. And then just this season, there's been some brilliant games and there's been some really, really poor ones. I thought against Leeds, I know Chow was only got substituted, but I thought he could have easily substituted Botman. I thought he was at fault for the second and third goal. Didn't get anywhere near close enough to Aronson for the goal. And then also against Bournemouth at fault for the Brook goal as well, and even the Tavernier goal. So my thing with Botman is I think he is unbelievable. If we go back 2023, 22, 23, arguably one of the best 3 centre-backs in the league that season. He was excellent, had it all. Can he get back those levels? And that's the risk that we've put in now by giving him this new contract.
Do you agree with that, Adam? Do you think they should have waited till the summer?
I don't know. Sven Botman, we've seen him at his best. If the club are confident that he will get back to those levels, if the assessment is that injury's now well behind him, if they think he's like a really good long-term fit to play alongside Malik Chow or whoever else we're potentially looking at to bring in, then I don't know. I don't know why he'd wait, because we'll get, obviously Fabian Schär's contract up and he looks like he's played certainly one of his last games for us now. Yeah. That injury will keep him out until the very end of the season. Dan Burns, no spring chicken. He knows that his minutes are going to be getting reduced as he goes on. They're going to let Lascelles go, by the looks of it. We're all of a sudden going to find ourselves incredibly thin at centre-back. And I think if they know there's going to need to be a bit of investment there, I can understand the logic in just going, well, let's just tie one of them down right now. If we've got 2 windows coming up where we know that position's going to be a priority, let's not have it on the back burner where we're waiting to see if he'll actually sign. I think if he's, I don't think it's going to make a massive difference when you get him in. I just think they have to be confident that he's going to get back to his best. Yeah. If not, then it's an absolute nuts decision to give him a bumper deal.
One thing, it's good for Ross Wilson to, I think, come in and get that business done really quickly. I think that's nice to see the sporting director come in and take control of the situation rather than the Paul Mitchell thing where we ended with the Isak nonsense. Do you know what I mean? And like, he was promised a new deal, we didn't give him it, and then it led to what happened. I still blame Paul Mitchell massively for that.
Talking of investment, especially at the back, we're obviously in mid-January now. Do you want to see the club being a bit more active to try and bring in some more defensive reinforcements, particularly because, obviously, like you said there's injury issues already and the fixture list is only going to get a bit worse. Do you feel that they need to act?
I think we're all still struggling to process the trauma of watching Newcastle United when both Livramento and Hall are injured. And obviously, like, Lewis Miley putting his hand into the lottery and just pulling out world-class right-back as a new gift to get for Christmas is so fortunate. But you watched Hall against Manchester City and he was the best player on the pitch. And I think by a distance as well.
I was actually fuming they didn't give him player of the match. I think they gave it to Semenyo. Yeah. I just kind of thought he was
pocketing Semenyo. I know Semenyo scored from 4 yards out, but he pocketed
Dan Burns should have had a word.
I think you've got to simultaneously budget for needing to rest him and him not being available. And I know, we play. People lose their mind when we end up playing Dan Burn out on that side. And I don't think he's ever really let Newcastle down when he plays in that position. But how we play without those two, without that kind of ball progression from fullback, we are a completely different team. We looked so far removed from like being composed on the ball, being able to play through the thirds when he wasn't in the side. I think they need to get somebody in. Maybe not even necessarily who is a left-back, because you're going to want to be able to give them games elsewhere. If you can bring a centre-back in who, when you move them out there, will still be able to do that, or you possibly, somewhere midfield who comes in, drops in there, but somebody who could go in at left-back when Hall isn't there and make sure the drop-off in what you're doing is not as dramatic as it was. I think that's an enormous priority for what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah. Is it worth bringing Matt Targett back from Middlesbrough, by the way, Jack?
Look, I've seen it suggested, and fair enough, but, realistically, that would also be a drop-off, wouldn't it? To be honest. Do you know what I mean? You do actually need someone who is just good in possession as well. The way football is now, players can seem to just play anywhere. Good players can play anywhere. We've seen this with Miley. Playing midfield, right back. He was at centre-back. And he looked great. Good players can play anywhere. And that's what we're seeing with Arsenal. They don't play really traditional full-backs anymore, really. They play centre-backs in full-back positions. We need someone who is just going to be able to maintain possession and allow us to still play the same way, because the issue with Dan Burn, as I said, he's trying hard, he still defends, but on the ball, he's nowhere near as good. And like, if you go to the West Ham and Brentford games, we lost those games essentially because all the attacks came down the right-hand side. And teams were exploiting Dan Burn.
We're not sure yet whether Newcastle are going to act in this window. You feel that if they do, it will be defensive reinforcements, but if it was a dream world where they could also invest elsewhere as well, where do you think the other priorities would be? I'll start with you, Jack. on that?
Yeah, I suppose one of the Man City players would be, maybe you could get on loan, Oscar Barber, Omar Marmoush, someone like that. If Oscar Barber I saw is going to be probably left out of the squad when the transfer window closes, and Marmoush's minutes have also gone down as well. Marmoush, for me, really versatile forward. I really liked him when he first came into the Premier League last season. Thought he looked really good. He might add some spark and creativity. And the fact he can play numerous
they've also
positions.
both scored at the Etihad.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it?
That could help us.
That would help, yeah.
Hey, Pep likes a challenge. He really does. He basically gave Arteta a starting kit of footballers when he went to Arsenal. Yeah. People said he couldn't play with a centre forward, so he went and got the biggest centre forward. People said it was a curse of him coming up in cup finals against teams with Croatians in them, so he bought 2 Croatians. He loves a challenge. Why not give us all the players you're not using?
Yeah, we'll have them.
I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yeah.
How about you, Adam? Where do you go along with Jack there? That they're the kind of positions Newcastle, if they could, would be benefiting.
As a matter of urgency, it's at the back.
Yes.
I think, again, as we said, with the contract situation with a number of the centre-backs and obviously needing a bit of cover at full-back, I think that's an enormous priority. I'd still stick with what I said last time. I think the real urgency is not necessarily positional, but it's in terms of quality. I think they need to go out, if only to sort of get rid of this whole stagnant feeling. It's been been floating around this season. Is go out and get somebody who's like, okay, this player doesn't matter where he fits in the squad. This player improves the level of the team you've got. I would love to see them go out and do that. And it's not we're not short a couple of quid at the minute. We can't be crying PSR this year, surely.
No, I think it's pretty,
especially with the huge sale, of course, in the summer. Talking of investment, there's also been some more pretty exciting news this week about a new training ground, potentially a £200 million investment. It'll be near the airport, 5 miles away from St James's Park. Part of the land was owned by the former Newcastle owner, Sir John Hall, as well. And they want the men's, women's and academy teams all to be in this new state-of-the-art, futuristic training ground. I mean, it's good news, isn't it, Jack? Because of those PSR restrictions, there was maybe a school of thought that the Saudi project was maybe getting a bit stagnant, and maybe because there wasn't that ability to invest, they might be looking at the project and going, well, what's the point in some ways? But this shows that actually they're willing to put their money where their mouth is and take the club even further forward.
I think this is massive in the terms of how PAF still view the Newcastle United project. I think the fact they're willing to put £200 million in to a new training ground shows that they are more than committed to making Newcastle a successful club. And if we think about training grounds that have been built in the Premier League, they're also the architects involved are going to be the ones who built the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They built Real Madrid City as well. So there's serious people involved in this, and there's clearly no expense being spared. And the fact that we're going to potentially have a world-class facility to attract players, train players, make everyone better, I think is a huge thing, and it is a big sign that PAF are still really interested in Newcastle.
And also just on that figure as well, I mean, Leicester have got one of the best training facilities in the country. That cost about 100 million.
That doesn't help them, does it?
Good point.
What a game changer that was.
That doesn't help them really.
City's Etihad campus cost 200 million, so it's a similar kind of level of investment in there. And I mean, it's funny, isn't it, Adam? All you think about, all I think about when I think about Newcastle's current training ground is the images of all the players in the bins,
the wheelie bins and the inflatable pools,
the paddling pools.
So we're in a wheelie bin.
Yeah. So like Jack says, it is an exciting investment, and it's a good point about the way it might attract more players as well to come and want to play for the club too.
I think if you look at Brentford this year, it's quite a good example. Like when Thomas Frank left, lost a number of players as well. Everyone was like, well, they are for the drop. So certainly for the drop. Now, they're fifth in the league. I've watched them a couple of times this season. I wouldn't say they're playing unbelievable football. They don't look like the fifth best team in the Premier League. But clearly this idea that it was all going to come tumbling down because this one figurehead at the club had been taken out proves that that's not really how it works anymore. And I think for a while, you want Newcastle to progress and you want the club to move forward. Yeah, all right, our hands are tied in terms of player trading, fine. But they're not tied in anywhere near the same way in terms of how you can actually build the club around that, the infrastructure. And I know people have gotten frustrated because we were promised a new stadium. Where is it? It was supposed to be ready by whenever, and there's no training facility and all this other stuff. Sponsorships, commercial deals and stuff like that. that is a real difference maker in terms of the long-term future of the club. Like, I know what we're sort of saying, like, oh, training facility didn't really help Leicester. Leicester in 10 years' time will be in a better position than they would have been otherwise for spending that money on the infrastructure. Like, you've got to think about the long-term game there. And I'd love us to feel like we're a club that's like transformed off the pitch as a result of the investment we've had. And I think that's a really, I don't know why it's taken this long.
No, I know.
I presume someone with a better idea of like land registry and planning permission can tell me about that. But
There's a David Hopkinson's arrival has probably helped as well.
well, yeah, probably the
CEO,
turnover behind the scenes in terms
Yeah.
of the amount of people in commercial positions and executive positions has changed. That can't have helped either. But yeah, I think I can't understate how important I think that investment is. I can't now get this image out of my head. You said the first thing you think of is the paddling pools. Remember when they put the hydrotherapy pool in and Shola did the tour, and clearly Matty Longstaff, who wasn't at the club anymore, hadn't been told the camera crew was going to walk into the hydrotherapy pool, and he's just standing there in his little trunks in the middle of winter, sort of really awkwardly looking at the camera. I can't get that out of my head now.
Oh, it's all going to change hopefully. And you mentioned David Hopkinson there.
Yeah.
In some of the statements that he's made, he said that he wants Newcastle to be one of the biggest clubs in the world by 2030. And something else that I thought was interesting about the statement was that he wants to welcome unrealistic expectations. So he wants people to scoff at that. He wants people to think there's no chance that club gets there. How do you react to that as a fan? Does that excite you as a fan, or does it make you think maybe got to temper it a bit?
You can probably got to temper it a bit, but equally, football fans have got a bit of a dream. Football, especially for, I think, Newcastle fans and most football fans, is an escapism from everyday life, to be fair. It is. It's tough times at the moment. And so I think that it's escapism for everyone. And I think it's nice to believe that your club are going to try and be the best. And I think throwing down £200 million on a training ground is a clear sign that, yes, we intend to be competing with the best, trying the best. Joe Linton spoke about it in an interview recently. He said, he wants Newcastle to have the best training facilities. He wants Newcastle to be one of the best clubs in the world. It might not be the time where he might have moved on, but I think it's the clear sign of the progression that the club want to make, and we got to welcome that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like there's a lot of talk at the moment as well, Adam, about the influence of the board on managers. You look at the situations at Manchester United and Chelsea, where Amorim and Maresca have both gone because they feel like there's too much influence from a sporting director. Jack points out, and you pointed out, the fact that there's been a lot of turmoil, you feel, behind the scenes, a frayed relationship between Eddie Howe and Paul Mitchell before. Does it kind of feel now a bit like the club are settling down a bit, working a bit more in tandem, at least off the pitch, so that long-term future looks a bit brighter? Well,
I think that's why decisions like this are so important, because the training ground isn't going to get a better offer elsewhere. Pick up all its buildings and go move to another club. The infrastructure
refuses to let anyone train.
Yeah, exactly. The training ground hasn't turned up for training.
It's on strike.
It's on strike. You're not going to get that's why infrastructure and bricks and mortar is so important to the fabric of this, because you're never going to get it completely settled behind the scenes. Managers will come and go. Chief executives will come and go. Commercial directors will come and go. Directors of football will come and go. You need to have stuff in place that whenever the people who arrive after that, who whether they're replaced or whether you think you can get somebody better in, they're coming in to as settled a system and to as established an organisation as you can possibly have. That's what every club is aspiring to be. None of them do it, by the way. I should point that out. Everybody likes to think they can get this, and the turnover for staff and people in important positions is absolutely massive all the time. But if you can get the groundwork in there, the framework for people to do a really good job, the easier you can make it for them, the better you'll be off the field.
Right, I'm going to check in on this quiz, by the way, because we've already got 5 of those names.
Mitrovic.
How are you getting on? Alexander Mitrovic is one.
Yeah. In his 6-1 defeat.
Yes, correct, yeah. By the way, I'll just caveat, it might surprise you this, a lot of these came in defeat.
No way.
Almost all of them.
Shearer, surely.
Shearer is one.
Why wasn't it? You have to go back that far?
Yeah, 2005, Shearer.
Oh my God, right. I've got Laurent Remy, is he one of them?
He isn't.
No.
He isn't. No. You've done well, though, so far.
What we got, 6, 7?
You're on to 7 now.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to it at the end, see if you can get the final 3. But you've done well so far, I would say. You've got some of the more niche ones. Now, I'm afraid we've got to move on to talk about Newcastle's fixture list. which is looking quite daunting. You know it's daunting when fans of other clubs are posting
It's become a meme,
Well, it gives a reminder.
So I will give you a reminder. This is what Newcastle have got to come after they play Wolves this weekend. They've got PSV at home in the Champions League. And PSV, by the way, have got a very good result
demolished Liverpool
against Liverpool, and that's a big game for Newcastle if they want to get through.
That's a big game, yeah.
They've got Aston Villa at home in the Premier League.
It's a big game.
It is a big game. Luckily, Villa's record is so bad.
The last time they won there, I believe, is when Dyer and Boyer had a fight.
Correct.
So,
There's an Aston Villa podcast right now trying to name the last 10 scorers of Villa players at St James's Park. One Pablo Angel, lads, that's 7. You've done really well.
They then got PSG away in the Champions League. They've got Liverpool away.
That's a big game,
they've got Manchester City away in the second leg.
That's a big game.
It's a big game. Brentford at home.
That's a big game.
Tottenham away, which is 3 points.
That's a big game.
They've got Aston Villa away in the FA Cup fourth round.
It's a big game. It's a big game.
When that draw came out.
And they've got Man City away in the Premier League. I mean, that is.
There's a couple of big games there, I think, isn't there?
It's quite a lot of games, isn't it?
I tell you what, it does. I think it does highlight, and we said this after the Sunderland podcast. There was a bit of a, I think I used the word crossroads for Eddie Howe because it had been a bit of a tepid start to the season. You know, still performing well, still close in terms of points where we wanted to be. But the Sunderland game was a big demoralising defeat. And then you sort of look at the rest of the season. And I think we said, you have to go on a run now. You have to go on a really strong run. Otherwise, we'll be adrift from where we want to be. Very little to hang your hat on this season. And all of a sudden, that scrutiny that he's under personally, that'll be magnified absolutely massively. If the last sort of 6 or 7 games had been a bit underwhelming, we'd picked up maybe 2 or 3 wins, and now we were going into this run, I think people would be really realistically talking about whether or not he survives it.
Yeah, and it's a good point because actually when you look at it on paper at the moment, as much as it's been a weird season, inconsistent season, frustrating season for so many reasons, Newcastle are 6th in the league, albeit a very, very tight Premier League.
Yeah.
They are still in the Carabao Cup. Just about.
Yep, we are.
They are still in the FA Cup. They're away to Villa. And they're still in the Champions League, and they have a good chance of making it through to the knockout stages. It's just when you look at that run, Jack, and I do think you're right there, Adam, that it's almost getting a bit of credit in the bank before what is going to be a very, very difficult run of games.
Yeah, so won 4 of our last 5 because I'm counting getting through against Bournemouth as a win. I know it goes on. You're in the next round. You're in the next round. So it's 4 wins out of 5. And then you have Wolves and PSV. If you can make that 6 wins out of 7, going into Villa, PSG, Liverpool, etc., and then Man City, I feel like that's what we need to do because I think just the confidence and the belief will be there that we can actually maybe take these teams on and get a good result. I mean, if you think about Villa's record at St James's Park, it is terrible. Aston Villa have been extremely good since, about the 7th game of the season. They've been excellent. But they will still come to St James's Park knowing that their record's bad. Emery knows that he's been battered a few times by Eddie Howe's Newcastle at St James's Park as well. And there'll be a bit of fear there, especially if we've won those games leading into it. So I think that's crucial. I think if you don't pick up the wins against Wolves and PSV, you're going into those ones feeling a little less positive.
On the PSV game, right, if they do manage to win that game, and if that win means that they are pretty much all but going through already.
13 points, wouldn't it?
Do you simply just rotate for PSG away? Surely you do.
I don't think Eddie Howe's that kind of manager. He makes such a point in terms of his mentality and his philosophy as a coach. He makes such a point of we treat every game, we go into every game to win. We focus on the next game all the time. Our priority is always, can we win the next game of football? And I can't see him being able to row back from his own ideals far enough to be like, we will throw this game, because we cannot be in a position as a football club where we look at any single Champions League game and think, not bothered. This is our 2nd season back. We've done much better this time than we did last time. The Premier League is so competitive for those European spots. You do not know necessarily when you're going to be back in it. The aspiration is to be back in next year, but we don't know. It might be another season, it might be 2 seasons, who knows? You cannot go into any game in the Champions League and not take it really seriously, even if that is to the detriment elsewhere. I think PSV and Wolves, if you bank those 2 wins, right? And I know we've just literally talked about we should have unrealistic expectations, we should dream. Bank those 2 wins, then from there, decent performances and maybe 1 good scalp. I think you come out of that run still in a position to attack the rest of the season, still in a really big competition. Maybe spring a surprise. Maybe we beat Villa away in the FA Cup, or Dan Burn gets that hat-trick he said he was going to get when he was on the Sky panel. Maybe he gets that, and we're still we're progressing another one of the domestic cups. And I think you look at the back third of the season from then on, and you go, actually, this has been really challenging, and it's been quite disheartening in some points. But we're actually doing really well. What you need to avoid is a really long, bad run where the performances don't make you think you're going to get a win. If we can go into all of those games, even if we've lost, let's say, 2 of them on the spin, but going, hey, do you know what? We actually gave a really good account of ourselves there. We've got every confidence that we can go in and do something here. I think it's as much about managing sort of the vibe around the club in that run as it is managing the actual games.
I think you're all right. I'd be annoyed against PSG if we went in and rotated the team. Like,
We owe them one, man. We really owe them one as well.
But these are the games we wanted. What's the point in going to the Champions League and then going away and play PSG, the winners, and then putting out the reserves? What is the point of that? We may as well go there and give it our best and try and show what we're about.
I also think that when you look at that run, as much as it looks very daunting on paper, I feel that you're not catching Liverpool in their best moment. Certainly not catching Tottenham in their best moment.
Feels like one of the worst unbeaten runs ever at Liverpool, but they are unbeaten.
Yeah, I don't think you're catching Tottenham at a great time. I think out of all of them, I think that cup draw is just so demoralising, isn't it? Especially with that result against Manchester City, because
when you look at some of the fixtures like Chelsea and Man City got as well, it's like that would have been an opportunity to rotate or to give players a couple of minutes and not necessarily have to worry about it too much. But hey, look, we won the Carabao Cup. We didn't get an easy draw anywhere. We had to beat everybody to go and win that tournament. Like this is the club, the kind of club we have always said we've wanted to be. Is a club that looks at that run of fixtures and goes, well, we might not win all of those games. It actually might be quite painful, but that's what we're here for, man. Every single team we play, they'll be worried about playing us as much as we're worried about playing them.
No, they will. Newcastle are a teams don't like playing against. Yes, we've not been at the levels maybe this season, but always under Eddie Howe has been the thing consistently. Second half of the season, we seem to always become one of the best teams in the league. So, and I feel like in the results, it's getting there. I don't think the performances have been absolutely top draw, but I'm starting to see individuals play a lot better. I'm starting to see Joe Linton play better, Lewis Hall play better, Lewis Miley play better. I think Guimaraes has been excellent.
Not to say we're going to win all these games of football, right? But I think when we're in a bit of a bubble supporting your own club, you can sort of be a bit like unaware of what the perception is of you, like wider football. We are still like quite massively feared by other teams in this league. If you look at the numbers this season, what was a stat I saw the other day? Teams going long from the goalkeeper in open play. It's the highest percentage of any team in the league against us. Teams like genuinely are still very worried by reputation, if more than in practice this season, of what we can do when we get really aggressive and we get in your face. And as a result, like teams go long from the back against us more than they do against Man City, against Liverpool, against Arsenal, other teams that press really high and can be really aggressive. We've still got that reputation of being really horrible to play against if we turn up. And you want to get a couple of results in that run, turn up, that's it.
Yeah. After the Everton win, David Moyes said, Newcastle are the most physical team in the league. Doesn't like playing against us. They just bullied us off the pitch. So there is still that perception.
Those days are few and far between. Like we said in the Sunderland game, where some of the actual metrics for this season aren't as good as they have been for us. We have seen a bit of a reduction there, but there still are games where we will do that to teams, and teams don't want to be the team that happens to.
I got pretty fired up when Adam started hitting the table there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I was doing that.
Yeah. I think we're taking maximum points with every single game and going through in both cups. So
I'll say this, right? Do you find it beyond the realms of possibility that we do win more of those games than we don't? I don't.
No, I don't either.
No, that's going to get clipped horribly with the Always Sunny in Philadelphia music when we get beat 4-0 every single one.
It absolutely is, yeah.
Curb your enthusiasm.
The biggest testament we can give to Eddie Howe and the squad and everybody else is you're not looking at that going, God, I just hope we come out of that without ruining our season. We'll get something in there somewhere.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. And then we can all sit very smugly at the end of this run.
Yeah.
With Newcastle in second and pushing for the title and in the final of the League Cup and through to the
following the 15th.
It is Wolves up next, and like you've both said, it's a chance for back-to-back away wins, which has been well, complete rarity for the whole of this season. Weirdly, it's fair to say that Wolves are in form.
Yeah, unbeaten in
also
3.
hasn't been said this season.
It's a good time to sort of get Tottenham away or to get Liverpool. It's the worst time to be getting Wolves. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they beat West Ham, they drew with Man United, they drew with Everton, they thrashed Shrewsbury as well in the FA Cup. But it's still a game, Jack, that has a lot of importance, I think, for Newcastle. And again, they've got to go and win. And I think particularly because of that away form that they've shown in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
They've got to get used to that winning feeling on the road.
You've got to look at the away games we've got coming out in the Premier League, because we've played all of the traditional Big Six at home, basically, in the first half of the year. So we've still got to go to Anfield, we've got to go to the Emirates, we've got to go to Stamford Bridge. We have to go to the Etihad again. So we've got to go there twice. But still, so we need 3 points. It's as simple as that. Now, Wolves, I would have been more worried about the game. I am worried about the game, by the way, but I would have been more worried about the game if they still hadn't won yet. And we were turning up, because it's just
Newcastle.
It's just classic Newcastle. I mean, you go back to Derby, you got 4 points off us. Do you know what I mean? So, but when I saw they were playing West Ham, I was like, okay, well, they're going to win that, and they did. They did win that. But they have turned it around. They should have beat Manchester United at Old Trafford. Thought they were the better team there. And against Everton, 1-1. You know, they were.
They've had their points. They've had their points for a bit. They can take the foot off the gas for a bit.
Matthias Mane looks unbelievable. Really, really good young player. And Rob Edwards, it's the same with the Luton. He gets his teams working very hard, and he's obviously clearly thinking about next season, because they're not going to stay up. But he still wants to have pride and passion in the performances. Newcastle need to go there and win. I believe that we will. I don't think it's going to be easy.
Yeah, how do you think they'll set up for this game? Are we seeing Johan Wissa start? Do you think he'll start with Nick Voltemade? How do you think they'll line up?
I think you've got to bring Voltemade back in at this point, and not even just as a reflection of Vissa's performance against Manchester City. Like, that is, you cannot be throwing somebody in game on game after they've come back from an ACL. We saw what happened when you tell Sven Botman to just run on the thing.
Yeah.
Again, like Eddie Howe keeps saying, like, his hands are largely tied in terms of the selection. I think it's impossible to predict what 11's going to turn up in that game. They'll have just assessed the players. Like, Barnes came on in the Man City game. They were desperate to give him a rest because he played 120 minutes plus in the FA Cup game. He was on the pitch for the entire game against Leeds, which ran over 100 minutes. I think they'll just be looking at, like, where are the freshest legs we can possibly put out on this pitch.
I think Elanga will get a start.
It feels like about an hour ago we were talking about Elanga.
Yeah.
Probably because it was. You've got to give him. You've got to give him. Like, you've invested 55 million in him. Not every player is going to work out. Our hit rate with talent ID has been unbelievable up until this point. But the only way it is going to work out is if you keep giving him those opportunities to show you he can do something, and then from there it's on him.
I think because they play wing backs, I don't know if that might suit him a little bit more as well. They're probably not unlikely to double up on him necessarily, be able to take on the wing back one-on-one. I would really start Elanga and then Barnes on the left.
So, Harvey Barnes, by the way, the hero last time at Molineux with that unbelievable goal. Right. It's time for the final 3 answers.
Oh, God.
This quiz. Looking for the 10 players who've scored away at Manchester City since 2000 for Newcastle United. You are missing 3. And actually, to be honest with you guys, you've got all the rogue ones.
We've got the rogue ones.
You should really get these.
Yeah,
I would
really.
say.
Bar or Cisse?
Not Bar or Cisse. No.
Sure, Amiobi.
No, not Amiobi.
Wilson?
Not Wilson either, no.
I think you have to go a bit further, because honestly...
You do have to go a bit further back.
We haven't scored
we're in the wrong time frame here?
Yeah, at the moment, a bit further back. So I'll give you a clue. You've got 2 strikers and 1 winger.
Okay.
Did you say...
Martins?
Correct. Femi Martins is one. Hero of the League Cup, just for a different club.
Yeah.
And then you've got 2 more.
Craig Bellamy?
No.
Oh, that's a good shout.
Not quite. These 2 played in the same team, so there's similar...
Michael Owen?
Similar era. No.
These are going to be really obvious.
Yeah, they would have been playing in the 2010-2011 season.
Yeah.
Leon Best.
One of them moved during that season.
Andy Carroll.
Andy Carroll is one.
I don't remember that goal.
And then you just need a winger.
From that
legend of the club.
Gutierrez?
Correct.
Yes.
There we go, boys. Well done. Brilliant work. And let's hope it's a few more scorers when we play them in the second leg. Or we sign Oscar Bob and Omar Mimouche and they sort us out as well. Gents, thanks very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Great work as always. Thank you very much. That's all from us today. Thanks for joining us, and thank you to our panel, Jack and Adam. And guess what? You can join us again next week, because that's right. As of this week, the inside shows across the talkSPORT network are all weekly. Very exciting times ahead. Have a good one. Goodbye.